Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next DotVVM community meetup. This is It's been a pleasure to do these tiny online events, and today I will be showing some interesting things what we are working on in DotVVM Business Pack. Because I'm not sure that everybody already tried the version 4, I will start with few quick demos about the features we have added in DotVVM Business Pack 4.0, which is published in a stable version for several months. And right now we are finalizing the version 4.1, like DotVVM 4.1 and also Business Pack 4.1, which will bring more enhancements and more new features. So there will be some things I will be talking about what we are planning for this release. So let's start with a recap of what we have done in Business Pack 4.0. The most significant change in the code base of Business Pack was the rewrite of the CSS layer, because when we started writing the first version of Business Pack, which is a long time ago, we started using less for CSS. So like the preprocessor for CSS was less because it was popular at that time. In Business Pack 2.0, we found out that less is not the preferred way of working with CSS. So we migrated to Sass, and we were using Node Sass package, which was quite good. But then the Sass language kind of split into two separate branches. One was the Node Sass, which is not preferred today, and the other was Dart Sass. I hope that this is still the main thing that everybody should be using now. And I know that there is also CSS and Sass, and they are a bit different. So right now we are using Dart Sass, and in Business Pack 4.0, we migrated to the new CSS. There were some breaking changes. Some of the customers reported that after upgrade to Business Pack 4.0, there are some things that looked a bit different, especially in the Bootstrap theme, which we had to rework from scratch. But most of the controls look still the same. However, the underlying CSS is built in a different way. And Business Pack comes with two default themes. One is called Enterprise, is the default theme, and it's optimized for line of business applications where you have a lot of controls on the same screen, so it's not wasting the empty space like the Bootstrap. So if the customer is demanding and you need to have a lot of form controls on the same screen, this Enterprise theme is quite efficient, and still it should look quite nice. The other theme is Bootstrap 4, and basically this theme doesn't use Bootstrap at all, so you can use it without having the Bootstrap CSS in the project. It just mocks the look and feel of Bootstrap elements. So if you will use BP text box, it will look the same way as the Bootstrap 4 text box, but it doesn't collide, it doesn't use the same CSS classes. So if you decide to use other Bootstrap controls, there should be no conflicts between Bootstrap and Bootstrap theme in Business Pack, because it's just mocked, so it would look like the same, but it's using different CSS, which is an advantage because there will be no conflicts between the controls. On the other hand, also, if you customize your Bootstrap, you need to do the same work twice because you need to customize this theme also. And for Bootstrap 5, there are no big design changes, so it won't be difficult to implement other themes to match Bootstrap 5 and 6 and other versions. Yeah. So the most important thing that if you need to customize Business Pack theme, you don't need to get the CSS files and override like values we are defining. we have introduced like more than 150 CSS variables. So you can use these variables to customize these themes. We have created a documentation page on how it looks like, so I can briefly go through that. CSS variables start with two dashes. So everything that starts with this is a CSS variable. And basically, if you look in the body element in DevTools, you will see a lot of variables like that. So you can override these values and it will propagate through the entire business pack. And here is the complete list of the properties. Here are some generic classes for hover effects, active classes, lighten, accent colors, and things like that. Here are the base colors for the buttons and other elements. There are some global properties, and there is also a lot of control specific properties. So if you want to customize background for alerts, you can use this this variable for these versions. Yeah. Also form item, if you are using form item control to define forms, here is how you can control the weight of the form and the colors of the borders and all other things. So let me show a demo of CSS variables. I have a very simple page which is using several buttons of different ways. I'm also creating a tiny simple form, not anything fancy from the semantic perspective. This is not very nice, but I am turning on here this override class. I just have checkbox which is switching is BP override enabled. And in the master page, I'm applying the CSS class BP override if this property is true. And what is the result when I run this page? You see that this looks like the default business pack style of control. So everything, no rounded corners, everything looks like this. And if I turn on the override, you can see this graphic looks much more like, I would say, childish, rounded corners, rounded buttons, more bright colors. And if you look how this is done, basically we have just one CSS style. And you can see that if the BP override class is here, allow me, I have this in SCSS, which is better than to look at the generated output. You can see I'm overriding these colors and I'm using this mixin for darkening things up. So primary color is this, and otherwise I'm just using this. So I'm calculating the hover colors and accent colors and things like that. And I'm also changing default paddings and borders and border radius. And that's it. If you set border radius, it will apply to all colors, all elements. And for the button, I'm overriding the border radius to different values. So you can see the controls have standard by default, they have 0.5 ems radius. So it looks like this, but the buttons have bigger radius, like 10,000 pixels. If it's more than half of the size of the control, it's clipped to that value. So like even if the button is really big, the border radius should make all the shorter sides be round. So it should be fine. Yeah. So you can apply this, and this is using just CSS, no logic on the server, nothing like that. I'm just adding a CSS class, and thanks to CSS variables, the new values will propagate through entire CSS of business pack, and the result is here. Yeah. Yeah. You can see when I hover mouse on this control, it will just change the color. So that's it. So you can look at the CSS variables if you open the DevTools like here. And if you look at the root element here inherited from HTML, you can see that business pack is setting a lot of variables on the root level. All of the variables starts with BP, so we hope we will not have conflicts with anyone else. And you can see all the colors and all the variables which are set here. So you can play with these right in the DevTools. And if you are happy, you can just write this property in your CSS. So that's CSS variables. So we can continue with the next demo. Another new feature we introduced in Business Pack was the Excel exports from grid view. We had to change the library which we were using for generating Excel files because the library we started using in Business Pack 1.0, it was obsolete. No one was maintaining it. So we started using closed XML, which is an awesome library, and it still is maintained. You see the last commit is from 1 hour ago, so it's awesome. And it's quite quick and efficient, so we really like it. And we have added a new extensibility point. So if you have a simple application for exporting data from grid view, it's quite easy. So let's run this app. On the page, I have standard grid view with some entries. You can see I'm binding several columns and having some custom columns with edit button, which will probably not be in the export because like it's just export of the data. I'm also using some custom columns. So I want to format the hours in a specific way. So that's everything I want to put in my Excel file. So this is how my page looks like. I am not a graphics guy, so this is not very nice. I haven't customized anything. This is just default look and feel of Business Pack. And when you click on the export button, it will produce this Excel file. And you can see that this is the native Excel table. Here is some sum of some items, and you can see some of the cells are highlighted. And that's everything you can do with this new API, because you can use a nice Fluent API to define how the export should look like. So the export button calls this function, and what you need to do is to find the grid view control in the page. I have added the ID equals grid to this grid view. So I'm looking for this grid view control in my view. And then you need to prepare the data set. I'm creating a new data set, setting only the sorting options. The paging options are empty. So here you can see in the page, I have the data pager, but if I'm exporting to the Excel, I've exported the entire table, so 110 rows. Of course, if you have millions of records, this can take quite a long time. So you need to make sure there will be some good limits set up. So I'm now using a queryable from my fake data service to load data in the dataset. And now you will just build an grid view export Excel settings object. And here, using this Fluent API, you can customize how the export will look like. So there is with worksheet name equals time tracking, which means that the worksheet name will be time tracking. So here, this tab name is time tracking. We want to start on the third row because I will need to apply some custom header to my table. So I will tell the library, OK, start the table on the third row, adjust to content, so it will measure the contents automatically and set the column width for me. So this one line will do that. And here you can specify rules for specific columns. So for column, which is using the date property, and you can name the column using this column name. So because here I have two columns which are using the same property, so I'm using column name to distinguish between these columns. You can also match it by the property, but in this case it will not be like unique. So for the date column, I will use just the date part of the date time. So I'm passing lambda what data I should show from the value. And here I will just select the time of day. And for end date, I'm using for column. And you can see you can also use lambda to match the property that is being exported. And time of day here. And for the hours column, I'm calculating the number of hours by myself. So you can use with column value provider. And for this column, we will use this value. So I'm asking the hours, which is double, and I'm routing it. So it will be it will look nice in the export, because in the raw data there can be like very long decimal numbers with many decimal places, which is not important. The edit button column I'm ignoring, so I say with ignore, which will just remove this column from the export. And for the hours column, I'm also applying some rule, custom rule. So if the value is less than 1 hour, I will set the background color of the cell to yellow. Yeah, so this is basically this. It's not the conditional formatting in Excel. You can use it also because the library has API for that. I'm just hard coding, like it's the same as I would select these values manually and click here, but it's quite easy to use. So you can make custom rules for the columns, and based on the rules, you can manipulate with the cell. Also, I'm passing a rule for the entire worksheet. So you can see that for the cell in the first row, first column, I'm setting value to time tracking report and setting font size to 20, which will create this header. And with table header, which means that this area will be it will also provide the table headers here. It will take the header text from these columns. So if you use localization, if you are binding this to the resx files to localize column headers, it will work. Yeah, because it will just evaluate this expression which you can pass here. And the last, sorry for switching these windows. The last thing after the export is finished, I want to touch the worksheet and do some other things. So I will find the table which was exported, and I will add the totals row. Basically, if you have a table in Excel, you can click here. You want to enable the totals row, which will auto-generate this row for you. And I'm saying that the first cell will have the total hours. So this is this text. And here I'm setting the formula to sum the values. So here I've just selected this sum formula, and it will create the sum automatically. You don't need to calculate anything. Excel will provide this for you. Yeah, so you can do anything with the worksheet here. So even if you want to add chart next to the table, you have the entire Excel API provided by closed XML library. So this is really awesome. And then you just use the export, generate the file, and send it to the user using context return file async. So this is the new API for exports for Excel. We also have exports for CSV, which don't need most of these features. And also we have exports for PDF. And also in this case, we are using some old and not very supported library. So in the next version of Business Pack, I guess in next major version of Business Pack, we will provide some better solution for exports to PDF. What we have been doing on our projects recently is that we took the grid view, generated HTML from it, and then passed it to basically command line version of Google Chrome, that you can pass some command line parameters to Chrome to load some HTML and print it to PDF. So that's what we have been using, but it's not very nice solution. We are looking for something better. Probably it will use some embedded version of Chromium to do this thing, but at least we will not have to take care of like cleanup when the process crashes, or if it's hangs, like once you remote RDP in the server, and you will see 200 instances of Chrome run and in some weird frozen state. So we want to avoid this. So we are looking for a library. If you have good experience with any PDF library, please let us know what library you would prefer. We will be happy to support this library if it's free or if it has some reasonable license. So this is the Excel export and this Fluent API, which allows you to do everything with the export. And the third feature, which was new in Business Pack 4, is the Messenger component. A lot of users wanted their pages to be interactive and to respond on the events which are happening on the server. And this was always possible using WebSockets or SignalR, but you had to write some JavaScript code and you had to take care about touching the view model from JavaScript. So we decided to make a component that would make this a bit simpler. So that's the new Messenger component. It supports only ASP.NET Core. We didn't provide the version for all .NET Framework, although it would be possible, but we would have to like maintain two versions because SignalR is different on .NET Framework and .NET Core. So we decided that we will postpone this to some future. And so far, no one asked us for a .NET Framework version of this component. So we don't have any plans right now to provide it for all .NET. For ASP.NET Core, it's quite easy to use. And let's look at that project. So I have a simple chat application, and let's see how it works. So I have a default page, which is quite simple because I'm just asking for author name. So you will enter your name and click on this enter chat method. It will just redirect to this route and put the author name in the query string. So that's just the entrance page. And here the chat has several controls. We have some alerts. So if the SignalR hub is connected, you will see green alert. If it's not connected, you will see red alert that there is some problem, you are not connected. And here we have just repeater with messages. Messages is just a list of some trivial objects, chat message, which have author, message, and the date. And we are just showing the messages. This to browser local time is also quite useful function. We have added in DotVVM 4.0. It's not in Business Spec. It's part of the DotVVM framework, and it will convert the time from UTC to the user's time zone, which is set in the browser. Please be careful with this function. If you are displaying this on the client, it will work quite nice. But if you try to evaluate this binding on the server doesn't know which time zone the client has. So it will not do anything. It will just return you the UTC date. So, but for chat messages, it's quite a nice scenario because, like, basically every chat user can be in a different time zone, and the date when the message appeared, it's best to store this kind of date in UTC and convert this to local time of every user. And here there is some trivial form with new message text, and there is a button which will just call chat service send message. It will send the message text and author name, and it will clear this window. That's it, basically. What is doing this communication is actually this thing here, the messaging connection. It tells .vvm connect to this SignalR hub, and if it's connected, write it in this Boolean property. So basically, this is some kind of write-only binding. When the state changes, it will store the state is connected true false in this property. So that's why I'm showing alerts based on that. So it will switch this Boolean parameter. And basically, this message handler says that if you will get a message called chat message, do this. So basically, I'm just adding this message to a list of messages, and it will appear immediately in the repeater. So that's it. And in this chat send message method, I'm requesting in this static command service, I'm requesting iMessaging context. Be careful not to use the default ASP.NET Core iHub context because it contains different methods which will not work with .vvm. This is basically wrapper over the iHub context because we are serializing this data different way than SignalR is working, because .vvm has some special requirements on the serialization. So make sure to use iMessaging context, and then you can say like the messaging context. This might be weird because I'm calling it hub context. It should be messaging context, and I'm calling hub context clients all invoke method chat message, and I'm passing this object. So you call a method, you pass a parameter. There can be only one parameter. So if you need to pass multiple values, put them in one object. And here on the handler, you will get the chat message, and you can use Lambda to process this message and like update this collection. So basically on one end, you have this control. On the other side, you have the iMessaging context, and that's it. Yeah. So when I run this sample and, okay, sorry. From some version of Visual Studio, I need to do this. I hope it will help. Yeah, I have to add TypeScript compile block, but only sometimes, and I'm not sure why exactly. So it's a bit weird. So now let me close all these windows, and I have this chat, and I will need two windows. So let me just make another tab, and let me make two windows. So here I will be Jim, and here I will be Doofy, for example, and I can send some messages. So when I click on this button, it will push the message to the hub. So this button is not adding the message to the messages collection. It's just sending it to the Signaler hub, but both pages are connected to this hub. So both pages will receive this event. And when I click on this, you can see here is hello, here is hello. Here's a binding which can detect if the author name is my name. So if it's my message, it's on one side, and here it's so it's switched because if it's your message, it has different style than all the other messages. Yeah, and this is also quite nice trick for handling the keyboard. Because like I've put the text box and the button in the form element, and this is submit button equals true. It tells .vvm to render like input type equals submit or something like that. So when I am in the text box and when I press enter key, it will automatically click this button. And because here is autofocus, it will set focus back to this control. So it's quite convenient that I can just write some message, press enter, and thanks to the submit flag on this button, the button will get triggered and the focus is returned back to my text box. It's awesome. I really like it. So you don't need to use JavaScript to do this set focus focus thing because it's quite convenient. And if I will stop this application, you should see that let me just close all of these. The Signaler hub should discover that in a few seconds, and it should end. Hopefully, I'm not running this in iOS Express. No, this is the other project. So after some timeout, it should determine that it's no longer connected to the chat. Maybe when I try to send some message. So, oh, it's in debug mode, so that's the problem. But it should detect soon that I'm not connected to the Signaler hub. Yeah, so the alert should change. Maybe there is like 1 minute timeout or something like that. If you try to send a message, but I have stopped the entire application, so I get the error because like even the .vvm static command couldn't be processed. but it should switch in a few seconds. I'm not sure I want to wait for that, so let's just believe it works. Okay, so that's the Messenger component. It's a part of special NuGet package. Sorry for this. It's special NuGet package. It's not included in .vvm.businesspack, so you need to include .vvm.businesspack.messaging because it has dependency on ASP.NET Core. So we didn't want to put this component into .vvm.businesspack. Okay, so that's for BusinessPack 4.0. And now what we are planning for BusinessPack 4.1. The first thing, and it's again a rewrite or a refactor of, this time it's not CSS, this time it's a TypeScript layer into ECMAScript modules. The TypeScript, BusinessPack contains a lot of TypeScript files, and from the version 1, we had some kind of layout and we were using some old version of TypeScript. At that time, browsers didn't support ECMAScript modules much, so we were using TypeScript namespaces and things like that. And the problem is that today the world has changed and everything is using modules. Even .vvm in version 4.0, or sorry, 3.0 was changed to ECMAScript modules. So we decided to refactor BusinessPack also. So we split the code base and all controls have their own modules. And the nice thing on this approach is that it's quite easy to make BusinessPack modular. So instead of downloading one big chunk of all JavaScript that BusinessPack consists of and all CSS, we could use modular approach. So we have some base module which contains the infrastructure, and then based on the controls you will use on your page, only CSS and JavaScript for these controls are actually fetched. There are some controls which are sharing a lot of code. That's why they have been put in one module. For example, checkbox and radio button. They are quite similar to each other, or some pickers like combo box and multi-select. They are also sharing a lot of infrastructure. So it's one module. But if you use grid view and button, these are two separate modules. So in BusinessPack 4.0, I've measured it on one of the demos. Like there were like 100 kilobytes of CSS and almost 500 kilobytes of JavaScript, because it was the entire BusinessPack, everything, all the code base. And also BusinessPack is still using jQuery, which we want to avoid. We want to remove jQuery, but there is a lot of dependencies on that. So it will take us some time until we get rid of it completely. But like half of the controls are not using jQuery anymore. So that's also a thing which will save us like 90 kilobytes or something like that. If you look at the version 4.1, you will see that the page is not downloading one big chunk of JavaScript and CSS, but it's downloading several modules. So here I have listed the modules downloaded by the grid view Excel export demo. So instead of half megabyte of data, it's just downloading like 113 kilobytes of some base CSS, base JavaScript, and just the controls which are necessary. If you look in the developer tools, you will see it. So if I run this grid view exporting project again, and if we look in the DevTools and reload the page, you can see that there is BP style. Oh, sorry. This request has like 9 kilobytes. So this is just base CSS styles for the BusinessPack, like colors and all the shared stuff, fonts. And this is for button, grid view, data pager. I'm using icon on some button in the grid view, so also icons module, but it has like 170 bytes, nothing special. BP text is very trivial. Maybe we will include these two in the base, still like work in progress, still in preview, and BP primitives, which is also containing some basic CSS styles. Here it's the BP JavaScript, which is 60 kilobytes because there is some infrastructure, and also button, grid view, data pager, and things like that. So these modules are quite small. So now we are downloading only the things that are actually used on the page. So if the page is not crazy complicated and doesn't have everything, this is the preferred way. There will be a configuration switch if you prefer to download one big bundle because of caching or because of you don't have configured HTTP 2.0 properly. So the loading would be slow because the browser would be making a lot of requests. Then there will be configuration option to request the entire bundle, but we are trying to deliver only the things which are really necessary. And these can be, of course, cached too. So the difference is really in the first page load, because otherwise, if you go in the second page of your application, there is a very high chance that you will already have some of these modules in your cache. So this will also favor caching, but maybe a different in a different way. So that's the modular approach of Business Pack. And if you are interested in how we are doing that, I can show you the Business Pack code base. And this is not on GitHub because Business Pack is not open source, it's a commercial product. But you can see this entire Business Pack solution there. We have a lot of libraries which correspond to the NuGet packages. We have tests, we have some sample apps. So this is the sample app. We are testing everything here. And here in .vvm Business Pack, which is the main NuGet package, here we have the control section, and every control consists of some C# code, so CS file, also from some TypeScript code. The IntelliSense is not working very well here. In VS Code, it's much better, and also some CSS. So now we have these files together for each control, and you can see that this CSS is actually sharing something from like Business Pack classes and some calendar mixins. And here we have we are generating some specific CSS for datetime picker control. And here in these modules, you can see the dependency. So we have some datetime picker base because all the date and time picker controls are also sharing some modules. So we are importing some base module and also importing CSS files. And these files are processed by ESBuild. Like in this package JSON, we are using ESBuild, which is amazing bundler. It's very fast. Just to bundle all the Business Pack, it takes just 1 or 2 seconds or something like that. And in this build script, we are just browsing the controls directories and bundling things together. And the ESBuild will also emit some JSON file, which will tell us this module is dependent on this module, and it depends on this and this. And thanks to that, we can generate the resources in .vvm. So it's quite nice. There is also tree shaking involved, so it's very nice. It will optimize things that are not being used. So that's very nice, and we really like the ESBuild approach. So if you have some more complicated pipeline, definitely look at ESBuild because it's very useful and very quick bundler. And we have integrated it into MS-Build, so we don't need to run it from command line using npm run something. We just compile our project, and it will also recompile all the CSS and TypeScript, and it's not slow. Yeah. So that's how it works under the cover. And we also have some other things on our plan in our pipeline right now. We want to improve the grid view control because most of its features were introduced in the first version of Business Pack. And then we were adding only some small things, but not anything significant. We want to support grouping in the grid view using basically row decorators, because we want the grouping to be compatible with paging and sorting. So it means that if one group will span over multiple pages, we need to make sure it will be working. So basically, we have created a decorator which will just insert the headers as a special rows in the table, and you can also you will have an extensibility point to calculate, for example, the total value of items in some groups. So just it should be compatible with our grid view data set which you are using, so it shouldn't be difficult to integrate. And also we will support selection of rows and cells and like Excel-like editing modes. So for example, when I get back to this demo, if you turn this feature on, you will be able to select a row and use the arrow keys to navigate through the table and page up, page down, Control A, and things like that. And if you click on the cell, it can change to the editable version of that cell, and you can select the value and confirm using Enter key and things like that. So it should be quite nice. So that's what we are working on now, because it has been requested by some of the users. So that's a grid view. And also recently we have done performance optimizations in tree view control, because some of the customers reported that it was quite slow, and we have released that in the preview build for 4.0. Also, we have backported this optimization to older version because it was quite easy to find. I would like to share it because it's a very nice story. So let me find this. So if I look in this tree view control, the server side part of the tree view control is not that difficult. Here is the selected values collection, and here are some other things to generate this, what is considered as a selected value, if an item is expanded, if it has children, and how to get to the children. So that's nothing special here, but in this TypeScript part, there is quite a lot of things happening. Basically, there is rendering of this tree view, expanding, collapsing the elements and things like that. And there was one base class which had a nice handful method called getParent. And the problem is that in this, basically this function get some item from the tree structure, and it was responsible to find a parent. And in most cases, it was a no-code observable, which was holding this value. Just in one case, this function was getting the raw value. The raw data value for this item doesn't have information about the parent, because it would create cycles in a JSON representation of the view model, which we want to avoid. But if you pass no-code observable here, the no-code observable has this parent item. So you can just touch the parent property in this item, and you have the parent. The problem is that this line was missing in this control. So what the code actually do was to get all items from the tree, get this item key for this item, and look for all the items and search, basically search myself in that all items collection. And then on this collection of observables, you were sure that here will be this $parent, because it's not the collection of raw objects, it's collection of no-code observables holding these raw objects, and single or default, which means that even if it's the first item you are looking for, you have to traverse the entire tree, because you need to verify if there is just one item in that tree. Yeah, so even if you are lucky and the thing you are looking for is on the top of the tree, you have to transfer both. And the problem is that there is a thing called getItemStyle, which generates CSS classes for every tree item. And I will search for it, getItemStyle. And here we are calling is loading, and this is calling the is parent. So for determining the style CSS property, class property of every tree item, the entire tree was browsed. So if you had algorithms at school, it means that the complexity is O n squared. And the problem is this is called from knockout data bind expression. And if knockout.js is evaluating data binding, and in the evaluation you are touching some knockout observables, it will call subscribe on them, and it will build a list of the all observables the value of the data binding depends on. So for each item, it was building a huge collection of all observables in the entire tree, because we were browsing the entire tree. So if anything changed on that tree, this CSS style had to be, or Knockout thought that this CSS style had to be recalculated. So after introducing this one line into that getParent function, is parent loading, and this getParent, we get like 10,000 times quicker performance on this page, and it's nonlinear, it's squared, yeah, so it's even faster. We made I can show a demo of a tree view holding 10,000 items. Before this optimization, it took like 30 seconds, and then the tab crashed and it's set out of memory. Right now, when we open this, and there is 100 items, and each item had 100 children, so there's 10,000 elements. You can see it takes like 3 or 4 seconds. Not very quick, but 10K items in a tree. I think that if you ask user to find something in that tree and there is 10K items, users will not be able to find anything without search. So I would not make that big tree structures in the page. Even 1,000 items is too much for doing anything manually. On the other hand, we said this should be a reasonable limit, what we want to support. So you see it takes 3 or 4 seconds, and every operation in the tree, it's under 1 second. So again, not very fast, but this performance, it's not linear. So if you will have a tree of a half of the size of this, so 5K of items, it will not be twice as fast. It will be 4 times as fast, or 8 times as fast, or something like that. Yeah, so for normal trees, few hundreds of items, the performance should be really quick. It should really work. So that's what we have. Basically, it's one line of code added one tiny if. So it's a very nice story. Even better story would be if deleting one line would fix the performance problem. Here in this case, it was adding that one line of code. Probably we could just put return item parent, but we weren't sure if somebody, because this is public API, so someone might call this method to using this raw data and not knockout observable. So instead of making the breaking change, we just made this. If the parent is not on that object, it will use the alt approach, so we will not be breaking anyone. So if you are using TreeView, try to upgrade to version 409 preview 01 final, because we have this fixed. If you find any issues with that, please let us know. We will be happy to, if there are some more errors, we will be happy to fix them. So that's and in 4.1 we also found some other things that we can optimize on the tree view. So in 4.1 it should be even faster than this. What we are also planning to add in an upcoming release of 4.1 is a new control. It's called draggable list, because some users asked us to provide a drag and drop experience in their user interface. And basically, we were thinking how to implement this control, and we found 2 scenarios which we want to cover. First is that you have a collection and you want to reorder things in that collection. So basically, this draggable list control behaves like a repeater. So you will put a data source to a collection and then item templates, and it will add some CSS magic and JavaScript magic. So you will be able to reorder the items, and they will reorder in the underlying data source collection. And then some users also asked, would it be possible to like drag and drop items from one container to another one? So we made an option that if you have two draggable lists or more draggable lists in the page, you will be able to drag things from one draggable list to another. And there is some selector, so you can just allow just some combinations of from this you can drag to this, but not to the third one because it has a different like purpose for that. I don't have a demo for this control because right now it's a bit broken because of upgrade from Business Pack from DotVVM 4.0 to 4.1. But on some next meetup, I will be happy to show this control because it looks quite nice. It's very good for if you let the user in the page to create some kind of list, then you can give them the option to reorder items, and then you just need to go through the collection and store the order of the items somewhere. So that's also a nice control. Right now, we are focusing mostly on the grid view. I'm not sure if we will make it in Business Pack 4.1, but we don't want to delay this functionality from the users. So once we have this Excel mode in grid view ready to launch, we will publish an update, even if it would be like 4.1.1 or something like that, or we will make 4.2. We will see. So that's what we are working on right now. And also we are working on Bootstrap 5 components. They are almost ready. We will be releasing them in a month or something like that. We are just now working on the documentation. We are using the new composite control approach. So this library, it's not like copy paste of Bootstrap 4 and changing the CSS classes. It's a complete rewrite of this library, but it's quite clean, and we like the new composite control approach for making control. So on some next meetups, I will be happy to also talk about Bootstrap 5 because I think this new approach for building controls makes a lot of things easier. It took us some time until we figured out what design patterns or what control patterns or approaches we should use so the components will work nicely and the code of the controls would be clean enough. But I think that we found the correct way. So that's basically what's in the kitchen right now. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to talk about, to discuss anything. And here are some useful links, .vvm.com, .vvm docs, and the github.com Riganti.vvm. Also, if you are interested in source code of this demo, I have been showing not the business pack code base, but the samples we have. It's on GitHub. If you write github.vvm business pack sample, it will show you the repo.vvm samples business pack 4. So you can download, clone this repo, and you need the license for business pack or the trial license. So here are the instructions how you can obtain it if you don't have the license. Okay, so if there are any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask anything. I'll be happy to answer or show some demos. Okay, I'm seeing only applause on the Teams. Thank you. It's very nice. And I hope to see some of you in person in a few weeks on an update conference and or on some other event. Okay, so if you have any other questions, like if not right now, but if you have any questions later, you can visit our Gitter chat. It's the URL is same as our GitHub repo. Just change github.com to gitter.im, and you can ask us anything. We have English and Czech channel, so you can choose your preferred language. We will be happy to talk. And there's the entire DotVVM team is watching the conversation, so hopefully you should get some answers. Okay, we have one question from the audience, so feel free to unmute.
Yeah, hello, Toma.
Right.
Can actually .vm team update the documentation for the messenger or messaging control?
Oh, I see. I'm not sure if we have the documentation for that. Thanks, that's a good point. Okay, that's yeah, we don't have any documentation for this. So thank you for the suggestion. I will make a note and we will try to provide that as soon as possible. Great. There may be other things that are missing in the documentation. So if you find anything like that, you can also suggest for all pages there is a button like edit on GitHub. So if you see a typo, we will be very happy if you just click on edit on GitHub and click on edit on this page and fix the typo and send us a pull request. It saves us a lot of work, and a lot of people are actually doing this. So thanks everyone who is helping us. And also there is a feedback button, so you can send some suggestion for the documentation. So it will fall in one of the mailboxes we are watching. Sometimes it takes us longer to apply these changes to the documentation, but we are trying to keep the documentation up to date. Okay, so are there any other questions? If not, that thank you for attending this virtual meetup. We will have a next event on November 22nd. It will be in a bit different format. It will be a live event streamed on YouTube because .NET Foundation is helping us. So it will be on the .NET Foundation YouTube channel, and we will be basically showing some cool features in .NET 7 that will be announced on .NET Conf in like 2 weeks. And also we will be talking about .vvm 4.1. Hopefully by that time we will have the release of .vvm 4.1. So we'll be talking about features in the framework which are new and which you can use. So next month it will be on November 22nd, also at 5 p.m. our time in our time zone. I hope it's 5 p.m. because the daylight saving time will be switching in a few days. So hopefully this will not desynchronize. But you will see this on the documentation in this top banner. So you can join us, and it should the link should lead to meetup.com, so you can register for the event there. Okay, so thank you for attending the meetup, and hopefully we'll see again either at .vvm Love.NET Conf, or if you are visiting Update Conference Prague, I will be happy to talk or have a beer, anything like that. So thank you, see you next time, and take care. Bye-bye.